It's snowing. Is there snow there?
There's no snow, but they say it will snow, and it's making everyone freak out. They close the schools. The city is on preemptive lockdown. There is no snow, though. Maybe there is in Corvallis, but we don't have any here.
Okay.
They're very funny about snow. Here, like, lose it. They have basalt or in the plows, and so they just, like, when it snows, they get to melt.
So I know Steve normally joins us, but I don't know that he's going to come today because he has small children and they are not going to school because of the snow. So we may not see Steve this morning. But Luke is here from University of Toronto Coders. Hi, Luke. He's joining us as an experienced study group lead to talk about growing your group, which I'm excited about. And I think we'll just wait another minute or two for more people to show up. But it looks like most of the people in the pad are here, so we'll just give it another couple minutes to see if others come, and then we can get started. For those of you who have groups that you are starting, while we're waiting for others to come in, why don't you, under the updates section in the pad, which is on line 21, we have your name and location actually up top, so we don't need that anymore. But if you have any updates, what's new, and then how you've been doing on your goals for the previous week, or if there's any updates on your study group progress, or if you have new goals that you want to add, please add them in that section of the pad while we're waiting for others to join. And Danielle, you kind of had a big week this week, right?
I defended my PhD, so that's really all I've done. But I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
To be able to have time to do things other than just work on that.
Mm-hmm. So. And what is the subject or title of your PhD?
The title is The Role of Myotubular and Pseudophosphatase, MTMR13, in Myelination and Disease. And so it was developing a cell culture model of a disease so that we could test, try to understand the pathways behind the disease better. It's very basic science, but disease relevant research.
Cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited. It was very anticlimactic. You just give another talk and then you have another meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, they're like, okay, we're going to pass you.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I think we will get started. And I'm not seeing anything under goals and check-in on line 25. So Vicky and Danielle, if you want to put something, Danielle, thank you. If you want to put something under line 26 for next steps, either of you, please go ahead and do that. And let's see. So this week we were just going to talk a little bit very briefly about Mozilla and Mozilla Science, for those of you who don't know. But I think everyone here on this call probably has a pretty good idea. People have been fairly engaged. But just so you know, Mozilla is an internet technology company. And so oftentimes people are like, science and science lab? And as many of you know, unlike our name, the Mozilla Science Lab is not a laboratory, nor do we actually do any real science. But we do encourage and enable people to use the web to do science, and to collaborate and share data on the web, and to use open sort of practices borrowed from the open source world to improve the creation and sharing and usefulness of research. And so that is the connection between the Mozilla Science Lab and Mozilla, the corporation that makes the Firefox Internet tool, and the ideas of open science. As part of the Mozilla Science Lab's schemes for world science domination, we have kind of 3 tracks that we work on. We encourage people to do open source projects. We have a fellowships program, which Aurelia could talk about at length because she is the boss of the fellowships program in science. And then also we have, and also Danielle could certainly speak about the fellowships program because she's a current Mozilla fellow. And then also we have this peer-to-peer learning network, which is the study groups program, and curriculum based on that, and a bunch of other learning experiences, including the Working Open workshops, which Achintya has attended. So that's the sort of bottom line of Mozilla and the Science Lab. Aurelia, did I miss anything? Do you want to add anything? Do you want to say just a couple words about fellowships program, not to put you on the spot?
Oh, okay. Sure. I think we also have a lot of calls and stuff too. We're kind of maybe reduce the amount of calls we have. But we have a community call. It's pretty regular. We have a book club now that's only in its 2nd month, but you should all join it. It's on December 19th, and we talk about books on Twitter related to a theme. And
what's the book? What's the book this month?
Oh, Weapons of Math Destruction. And it's about algorithms and how people apply them to everyday problems and sort of slight certain communities or introduce biases that people aren't aware of, and how that affects the way that we navigate the university system, the way that we navigate economic systems. So it's interesting. And you should join us. And if you don't want to read the entire book, there's a blog post where I list all these articles where you can cheat and you can just read the articles and then you'll have something intelligent to say about the book. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, we have a fellowships program. It's pretty cool. Danielle can talk about it too. It's 10 months of funding to work on open science projects, basically. So if you're ever interested, actually run your fabulously successful study group and build community beyond capacity that we've ever seen before, you should totally apply to be a fellow. That's all I have to say.
Thanks. I think the other thing that I just want to say about Mozilla Science and Mozilla broadly is that it is pretty much about participation, and our community members are at the core of our organization. So anything that you want to do that you're excited about can be part of our work and supported by our work. So your great ideas, your cool study group curriculum, your amazing projects, your cool events, we want to know about it and support it and share it with others. And there's just a few of us working on the Science Lab team, so much of what we do is with and about you and your work. So come to us with ideas and exciting things and news and updates. We want to know, and we want to be part of what you're doing. So let's see, what's next? So does anyone have any questions about Mozilla Science, the Science Lab, the corporation, Firefox, anything else that we can answer just right now while we are on this call? And we'll do our best to answer it.
Could I put Aurelia on the spot and ask if there are any plans to extend the science fellowship to more than just the natural sciences?
Yeah, so we've discussed that. Unfortunately, for the past 2 cycles, or I guess fortunately for the people who got it, so yeah, good for the people who got it. It was restricted to the natural, physical life and natural sciences because of our funder, because our funder was a biomedical research funder who really wanted to focus on supporting those communities and didn't have any interest in the social sciences. So we did have to, unless the social science that you were working in had some connection to the physical sciences. So if you work in some aspects of cognitive psych and not just behavioral observation sort of psych, you could apply. But it was all kind of very fuzzy. Now we have our next round of fellows is going to be supported, or half of them are going to be supported by Sloan, which is a different funder who may be open to more disciplines. And then the other 2 fellows are going to be supported by either Mozilla or this other grant that we're going for. Don't tweet this, obviously, I guess. But I guess Zena's recording, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, the hypotheticals of this are that potentially we could have 2 spots that would be defined by any parameters that we would set up. So we would be able to accept people in the social sciences if we felt that that's the direction we wanted to go this year. And then for Sloan, I don't know yet what their stipulations are, because previously our fellowship was funded by the Hadley Charitable Trust. So now that it's changing funding models, we might be able to accept a broader range of people this year. So to answer your question is, yes, we probably will extend the terms this year because our funding has changed.
Great. Any other questions about Mozilla, the foundation, the corporation, anything else about that you guys want to know? Okay, no questions. All right, so let's just keep going. Whoops, wrong Etherpad. I just want to pop back up to the goals, underline 27 and 28. Vicki has been working on the IoT teaching kit. Do you want to just take a second and talk a little bit about that, Vicki, and what that is and where it's at? I looked at it this morning, and it looks like you have a lot of great stuff there. So do you want to just go over it real quick because you have a few minutes? Can't hear you. Not up. Okay. Let's see. He might be joining and then rejoining to tell us more about that. In the meantime, I am going to grab the link that he posted last week to this document where he's working on this Internet of Things teaching kit. I'm going to put it underline 27. And what's awesome about this is it's sort of like the beginning of a complete curriculum that he's designing. Oh, he's back. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay. Audio's not working today. Anyway, I put the link under the current line in today's Etherpad, so definitely take a look at it. And what I love about this is it's like the design of entire sort of get started doing Internet of Things, hacking and working. And it's the beginning of something that's going to be really pretty comprehensive and I think useful for lots of people. So it's a great example of some community-based curriculum creation that's going on, that's shareable, and just wanted to point that out. And then Danielle, I noticed you put a little update. Do you want to verbalize your next step study groups now that you're through the dissertation gauntlet?
Sure. Yeah. So now that I'm done with that, and I can't believe it all actually worked out to be done for this semester. So I have been talking to Letitia, who's joined us on some other calls. She's the research data management librarian, and she wants to help run the group. And so I think that'll be great, and also like help to bring continuity to like really keep it going for the long term, because she's not transient like the students. And then there are some other students who there was a summer Python club and a data science club that other students started and sort of fizzled out, but those students are all interested in a Mozilla study group as like a format to I think it'll just help them to have a little more structure and not to have the students not be totally solely in charge. So I'm excited about my team of heroes, and hopefully we can get it going for January. So
cool.
Cool.
So this is an odd question, but it relates to our topic of conversation today. For the people that you have been thinking about partnering with, what qualities do you see in them that potentially make them good partners to run the group?
So yeah, so I've been at my institution now for 5.5 years. So I have seen many groups come and go, and I feel like hopefully I've learned, and I've started groups myself, and some of them are still going. So I feel like I've learned about, at my institution anyway, what you need to have something that has longevity. And one of the things I think we need is engagement from faculty at some level. because otherwise what happens is you get a student who's really interested in something and they'll pursue it for a little while, but then grad school is, we're all, here to get our PhDs. And so it can be hard for students or postdocs to sort of sustain something. Not impossible, of course, but what I've, on my campus anyway, what I've seen is that it works a lot better if you have some faculty or like staff people also involved, because then they get it through the rough patches when the students are really too busy with their dissertation work. So I was looking for that, and then so Letitia will be fantastic for that, and me now because I'm not a student anymore. And then there are a couple of other people that I've worked with on Science Hack Day or engaged with on Science Policy Discussion Group or Women in Science who I know have really good follow through. And I think that's my biggest thing that I was looking for when I was approaching people, are like people that I know will say that they're going to do something and then follow through, because that's key. And so I think getting that is maybe for me more important than their level of knowledge or anything like that, because I know that they're interested in Python, or they're interested in data visualization, and that's great, but getting them actually to follow through is the most important thing. Not really a deep thought, but it is pretty important.
Will they do what they said they were going to do?
Yeah. Or do they overcommit? Do they have time for this? And trying to make it manageable. One of the things I really like about the study club format is that it can be as much of a time commitment as the people involved want. So we can, people can design their own lessons, or if people don't have time to do that, like Letitia and I can do the lessons and people can just show up. Mm-hmm. So I think trying to understand everyone's level of involvement. I'd love to hear from U of T coders to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is actually, I believe, the next little bit on our agenda. So Luke, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about U of T coders, how you got involved, and all that?
Sure. Is it echoey in here at all, or no?
A little bit, but not bad.
Okay. So I guess I got started in. So Maddie was the head, and so when she started she set up the first hacky hour. I've been for the longest time. Oh, sorry, I'm Luke, by the way. At the U of T, University of Toronto, doing a PhD. I guess that's a good introduction.
What's your PhD in, just so we know?
Nutritional sciences.
Okay, great.
And okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Maddie, when she first started did the first hacky hour, having this is the very beginning. I had for the longest time wanted something like this to take place, and the first time I after the hacky hour, I came up to her and be like, I've been wanting this to happen for a long time. I want to help get this to grow. And one thing in regards to keeping it sustaining that at least we've kind of realized is finding people that want this to continue. How do I say this? So at least on our end, it's entirely student led. We don't because it's kind of independent of a faculty. We really emphasize trying to get students involved. So one of the first things that we did was, or not, I guess not the first things, but we started to realize that we need to have because we didn't want it to fizzle out, kind of like what you were saying, Danielle. We wanted it to continue on into future years, and so we set it up so it was kind of like a council, so we had elections, we have positions. So I'm the treasurer for the organization. Maddie is the boss, the head boss, and then we have admin. Then we have technical guy. We recently got great.
I want to ask a question about this.
Yeah.
Are you a registered student group at your institution? Do you get funding from them? Did you go that route?
We did get registered because we realized like that's one way of making sure that it continues, because then we're recognized by the university. We're part of them, so we can be searched by them. We have like a constitution, and at least I've found like maybe the biggest thing is not so much whether they're interested in the group itself or interested in coding or whatever, but everybody on the council that we now have, I have so much fun hanging out with them. Like, we just have such a great time, like, hanging out, and it doesn't even really matter. Like, there are several people on there that easily don't even need to benefit from the study group, because they're just so, like Elliot, for example. He's just, like, he's there because he likes us, you know? So I think that's a really important component of study groups, is to get people, it's like building a community. Getting them to come there so that you can, like, have fun, chat, be with like-minded people. And so, like, trying to get people like that all together in a format that, like, allows people to share coding and, like, I think that's really useful. Another really important point is getting money. Getting money so that you can host events, like, you can have people come to, like, you have snacks, and you have, like, you can pay for beer and stuff like that, or drinks or whatever. And so, at least for us, that was one important thing that we wanted to do, and I kind of pushed for it. I'm a treasurer for two councils, this one included. So I recognize the importance of having, like, a source of income and then spending it, and, like, having more of a, like, we have our own bank account and everything. And so then it allows people to come to these events, not have to worry about paying for drinks or whatever, and just, like, come and just, I don't know how to say it, just enjoy, you know, like, not have to worry about, oh, like, I can't spend money because I'm a poor student. Well, it's okay, because we're paying for you, you know, type thing. So, yeah. So, for example, like, one source of income that we've kind of been doing is having workshops and, like, charging through that. Like, so, for example, software carpentry, we organize our own self, because we have several members that went through the whole instructor training process. And what was I going to say? And so, like, we donate some of the proceeds to software carpentry, but they said that we can keep some of it just to continue our group. And then, kind of from that, we got somebody from QP, like our union, for the postdocs, who hired us on to teach some workshops. So, I mean, it's kind of like slowly building it up into the, you know, continuing it on. Yeah.
That is so interesting and great to hear. And I'm curious to know, when in your group's development did you decide to do a council? Like, how did you go from a couple interested people to being large enough so that you were having elections, and, like, what did those first elections look like? And then I'm also curious to know if any of your processes and sort of organizational structure are documented on GitHub. So 2 questions, but you can...
So the first question is, it was probably after a year of, like, well, maybe 8 months. 8 months, like, I came on board and, like, almost right away started helping out. Elliot was also helping out, because they were in the same lab, or, like, floor, with Maddie and Elliot. And so, like, right from the beginning, we were helping a lot. We were, like, organizing lessons. We were fixing up the website and doing a lot of, like, maintenance type stuff. But then we realized, and then we got other people to come on board, and then we realized, like, we're doing this for, like, out of our own, I guess, kindness, or we wanted this to continue, but we recognized that it's important to give credit for what we're doing. And so we wanted it to continue, so we decided to set up to get it recognized as a student group, to get council, to get, like, elections going. I mean, the election, like, all of us, the people that were wanting to continue, we were like the only ones up at the time. So there was like, but people came and voted. Like it was great. It was really nice.
How many people came and voted? Like how big was the group like after 8 months?
After 8 months, I would say, so we have about, I think like 120 people on the mailing list, but consistently there's probably about 20 people that consistently kind of come up, not to every single session because we have them every week, but there are about 20 to 25 people that consistently come and that are regulars. And there's some other people that come occasionally for certain events. So maybe upwards of like 40 people that I've actually met, even though we have a larger number on the mailing list. And then in regards to your second question, we set up a repo called Council on GitHub. So everything is on that Council repo. So like the how much money we have, like the constitution, the minutes, the meeting minutes. Every time we have meetings, we put them up there. And I guess the other thing too is we created an organization on GitHub, like the organization pages, or not pages, or organization accounts, so that rather than it be associated with, at the time it was Madeline's, we realized that we wanted to be kind of like independent of any individual. So we set up as an organization, and then from under there we have like the website, we have events, we have the council. So yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm also curious, were there any moments in the history of your life story of your study group where you were like, this isn't working, or like maybe people aren't coming as much? Were there any like rough patches, like, or things you tried that didn't work out? And if you can think of any, like, what were those, and any lessons learned?
Yeah, I would say the first kind of rough patch that we had, I mean, there was a couple. The main one I would say would be that because we have people from all over, not necessarily on the council instructing sessions, we needed some way. So we had one instructor who didn't know exactly what we were expecting, because previously it was kind of like people that we knew and we already talked to. And so this was somebody who came on, and it was like the first lesson of that topic. And I don't want to say she didn't do a good job, but it was a little confusing. And that was mainly because of us, because we didn't have like a page to be able to say, okay, this is how you as an instructor come on board and like help instruct sessions. And so from there, we decided that we need to have some type of documentation for new instructors, which I think helps. And then the other one was probably, there were a couple times when, because we need to have somebody who has a key to open the door for the room that we have, there was a couple times where the person, like, we just forgot about it, and so like the instructor came and like couldn't get in, and so I had to, like, it was a little bit of messy. So then we set up like this, on GitHub, the issues, you can assign people to come to that specific issue. And so we use that functionality to say, okay, we assign whoever, like myself or whoever, to make sure that they're at that session, because otherwise we don't know. It's like, they'll be going. It's no big deal. And then everybody's saying that, right? And then nobody goes because it's like, oh, shit. So yeah.
Great. And so it sounds like you have lots of different people instructing and volunteering.
Yes.
And how did you, in the beginning, was it just a few core people? Like, how did you get more? How did you bring on more instructors?
That's a good question. How did we? Most of the time, it's just, so the way we have it set up is we have like the whole term, the schedule for the whole term set out. So we have every single week we know what we're going to be doing, and then we try to find instructors for those weeks. And so then usually instructors just fill out themselves. So like they come on board, because we have several advanced users, advanced coders in the group who only want to be there because they want to share and like help other people build up. And so they like sign up for whatever of the topics, or they say, oh, I want to teach this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we just sign them up. And then for the days that we don't have somebody, we try to find somebody that will be willing to do it. So we're really proactive in trying to find people, but oftentimes it's just like, they just come to us.
And when you started the group, how did you find the advanced coders? Like, it sounds like there was a base of people that wanted to learn this stuff and research, but didn't have a bunch of experience. So how did you bring in those more advanced people?
I honestly don't know. They just came. I mean, I wasn't novice when I started because I wanted to be able to teach this. Like, I wanted other people. Like, it's kind of scary that like we're doing science and we don't necessarily know how to do the coding of it, which is like the base of a lot of scientific results, right? It's kind of scary. So I wanted to be able to teach people, and so like I just came, and a lot of other people have the same sort of mentality. And then because we're all like-minded and we enjoy hanging out, and it's just a fun atmosphere. So people just come because it's fun.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions for Luke? I'm going to check the pad. I haven't been able to look at the pad because I'm recording, so see what's going on in the pad. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of questions, but I'm going to put a line here on line 45 for questions. So if you think of any, put them there. And no other questions for Luke? Anybody?
I just want to say thanks for all that detail about how you got the group going and all that. All that stuff is really, really valuable, and that's like the secret hidden knowledge. So thank you for running through that.
Yeah, it's especially interesting for me to hear about like your funding sources and finding ways to use some of the skills in the group to bring it outside the group a bit, but also to get a little bit of extra money to support and continue your work. And so I'm wondering under that questions line, if you could add the link to your council site so we could see kind of what the Constitution looks like, the setup and all that stuff. I think many people who are just getting groups started are probably like not at that stage yet where they're like running elections, but they're excited and interested in like the potential future structure. So really cool, really great information.
Yeah, and I just want to say that's really valuable. That's like the most valuable thing that I've learned from my other groups that I've been involved in, is getting a leadership structure in place is really important for the longevity. So for my Women in Science group, which has been going for like 4.5 years now, we have a steering committee. So we don't have specific elections like you described, but a steering committee allows people to sort of step up when they have more time and then step back, but still maintain membership on the steering committee when they have less time. So
it's good.
Awesome. So next up on our schedule is Aurelia, and she is Superstar Programmer, Fellows Boss, and also our community lead at Mozilla Science, which means that most of you have probably had some sort of interaction with us because she's like the public face of the organization and does many of the community calls and the study group call. And so I just asked her to come on the call and talk about community and gathering people together and sort of momentum and growth and all that stuff, and some of her cool ideas like the book club to get people engaged in different ways. So take it away, Aurelia.
Sure. Okay, I'll try to be fast because Luke covers so many great things. I kind of wanted to give an example of a study group that failed that I ran, so that no one feels bad about the performance of their study group. And then I wanted to go into like a maybe even more sophisticated meetup, kind of like what Danielle described with the Women in Science group. We have another one in New York that kind of took off and became pretty supported with many chapters all over the U.S. and Canada, and then some in Latin America too. So that's pretty cool. But I'll start with the downer one. It's not really a downer. It's just like, I don't know. Yeah. So last year we did a space apps. We hosted space apps in Brooklyn, and my friend Stuart and I coordinated that. And so we also combined it with Science Hack Day. And we had like a fancy website.
Can you just say what Space Apps is for people who don't know?
Sure. Space Apps is a NASA program that goes on every year, and they sponsor it's kind of like the Global Sprint that we run every year, but they ask people to host hack sites, and then at the same time they release these challenges. So all of the projects that are submitted from your site should fit under one of the challenges. And the challenges are pretty varied. There's usually like 6 main ones, and they have a bunch of questions that are supposed to guide what you might do. So one of our most successful projects was this origami artist showed up, and he wanted to make like little self-folding robots. So he designed with his team this like kind of grenade-looking robot that could be shot from rovers and then would fold itself into something that might be useful for repairing old rovers, because apparently there's like a bunch of rovers that are broken all over Mars, or not Mars necessarily, but all over the place, because nobody can afford to deploy something that could go and fix them. So yeah, this was like a prototype for that, and they actually made it to the final Space Apps like top 5 challenge, which was very exciting. But yeah, NASA sponsors the competition and then takes a lot of submissions from all of the different sites, and then they have a judges team that decides who wins for each challenge or category. So yeah, so that was that, and we had they send you way too many emails when you're planning this, so you get an email every 2 days from NASA being like, oh, have you set up your Eventbrite yet, or what have you done, and like, please attend this call so you can learn more about community management or whatever. So we attended all those meetings, and they made a little website for us, but we ended up making our own website. And we also had like a data kind of camp the day before to try to get people to feel prepared to work at the hack day. And that has a format similar to the WoW, so you might recognize the website. And then let's see, I'm gonna put in But anyway, after this, we had a very kind of organized operation. We had really good attendance, and it was in Bushwick, which anybody who's been to New York knows that that's kind of like way away, and it's hard for people to get to. But we had this really amazing space that was donated, and so afterwards we thought, well, we're going to have this thing, Science Hack Sundays, that'll take off from Science Hack Days, and every Sunday we'll have a meetup to work on kind of building up people's coding skills or working on projects. And it worked for like 2 months, because we had it on 2 Sundays over 2 months. But the problem was that we always hosted it at the same place, so it was in Bushwick, so it was far. And after people have been to one event, they're not so motivated necessarily to go all that way to attend. And then it became I think Stuart and I are sort of these people that just hemorrhage projects. Like, we're all like, yeah, let's sign ourselves up for another thing that we have to organize. And if you're totally taxed, you just don't have the energy to plan the next one. So it ends up being this really low barrier to prep thing where people can just show up and there's a theme, but it doesn't have the same structure and planning. And I think one thing that Luke mentioned is that most of the council have training in software carpentry, which is great because it gives you a lot of facilitators training, and you also have this kind of bag of lessons that you're prepared to deliver, so it doesn't feel so intimidating to figure out a theme and what you want to work on. So yes, hemorrhaging projects. I know, Danielle, I know, I feel you. So that's one that didn't do so hot. So that was a bummer, and it was mostly because of time management, because we were totally overtaxed, and we didn't have a good plan for how we would market it and get people to come all the way out to Bushwick. But another thing, let's talk about the success story. So a few years ago, my friends started a group called Girl Develop It, and it's not a study group, but it's at the time it was a meetup, and it was to teach women how to code in the evenings, mostly scripting languages and websites. And so I used to teach for that. And then my friends moved on and did other things, and I just kind of kept maintaining the project, at least in New York. But here, let's put the website. And we didn't really have any model for how we were going to do this. We used meetup.com, which at the time was way more naive in its features. And you could just basically post something and say like, hey, we're going to be here at this place. It's a $5 donation to learn how, introductory JavaScript. And we learned a lot of things from that process of hosting those kind of free workshops, especially in New York, which is that people, and it's such a weird thing, it feels very anti-open source, but people who don't pay to attend things don't feel committed to them sometimes, or if they don't at any point, if they're not engaged to teach a lesson, they don't feel committed to it because they don't feel that involved. So we started charging like $5 for some of our workshops because otherwise the teacher would prepare something and then no one would show up because it's New York City on a Thursday night and everybody wants to do something else besides learn. That's not true. That's very negative view of New York City. But but yeah, it was. We started to have a donation and then we used it for snacks, at least for the events, which was really helpful to sustain attendance. We also started to diversify our meetups, so we used to have just classes where it was like JavaScript every Tuesday for the next 4 weeks from 6 to 9, and they were always after work. We never did them on weekends, mostly because we had donated spaces. So I had like a spreadsheet of places that I contacted that said that they would donate space to us certain nights of the week, and so we'd have a free venue. We would adjust the capacity of the class on Meetup, which you can do. You can restrict it to 20 people who can sign up for something. We would adjust it depending on what the venue asked as their capacity. Sometimes we'd have, only a conference room and there would be like 10 chairs and they would say, you can't have a class bigger than 10 people. And sometimes we would get, when we, later in our iterations, so this was like 2010, I think, a few years after that, people started donating like big spaces to us, which was very nice. Like Dropbox and all these big companies were like, "Oh yes, we support women who program. Please take our space in the evenings." So it was great. But yeah, we would charge a tiny fee. Yeah, I see someone plus oneing that because people otherwise didn't feel committed to it. And we had all of our lessons on GitHub. They were all Reveal.js presentations where you would go through the slides and then there would be links to practice files. And at first it was whatever the teacher wanted to do. So our GitHub was just a mess of, a repo named React or one named JavaScript, and it would be whatever format somebody who made it wanted. But then about a year and a half in, we decided we needed to have like a structure or a formal format. So we need a template repo, and we matched all of our existing repos to that template. And that way, everybody who would go to our website where the resources were linked, or would go to the GitHub, would get the same structure. So if they'd ever attended one of our workshops, they could do their own kind of self-paced workshop after that because they'd know the format. So that was great. And then Sarah, who's my friend who started it, started giving talks about it. And suddenly, like, all of these women were emailing our email address and saying, like, hey, I live in Santiago, Chile, or I live in Austin, Texas, and I want to do this. Can I just, like, fork your repo? And we had, everything was open, so there was no reason why they couldn't. So at first we were like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, give us your meetup.com address and we'll put you on our website. And so we had chapters in Sydney and we had chapters in Paris. We had chapters all over the place and it was really cool. But then we realized that because we hadn't set up any standards for how to set up a chapter, like we had no playbook, we had no handbook for how often you have to have classes, how do you get venues, what do you do? Because this was all just stuff that we'd kind of picked up from doing it many times. But there were some, meetups that didn't do anything, like the Sydney study group. We were so happy to be so far away from the US, and yet they weren't doing anything. And so sometimes I would like write messages on Meetup creepily and be like, why aren't you guys hosting something? Why don't you try? So that was weird, and it made us realize that we needed to have some structure. So we made like a toolkit for any other chapters. And this is something that might not necessarily apply to study groups, but when you start doing anything cool, I think on campuses, people ask you like how they can help out or do something like it. So thinking about like how you want, what Luke said, like how you want your exec board, I guess, to be structured, who sets the standards, and how you want them to teach other people to take over after you leave. Is an interesting problem that most people don't think about because they're too busy doing the one meetup. So yeah, having like a little playbook of all of your or a council repo or something is super helpful. So I just wanted to tell that story because it was more successful than the Science Hack Sunday story, which might be revitalized, like it might come back from the dead, who knows? But yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
So I'm just going to pop over to the pad and see what questions there are, if there are any. Looks like a ton of great links. Does anyone have questions for Aurelia about her projects and experiences?
How were you motivated to start something else after you found something that didn't work out? How did you keep going?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always start new projects. It's like really bad. I have like a huge list of projects and I just go through them. I mean, failure is kind of just the process of moving on to the next project sometimes. I have probably failed a lot, but that's probably because I try a lot of things. I think for the Science Hack Sunday, we kind of did this other thing, which is not a recommendation I would make for anyone else, to start a new project instead of finishing the project that you already started. But we got really excited about this idea of doing a show and tell for people who wanted to put things in museums. So we started a new meetup called That Belongs in a Museum, and people would show up with objects and talk about their objects and say what museum it belonged in, and then we would make an exhibition catalog and put it online. So we started doing that instead of Science Hack Sunday because it was just as much work, but it was more fun and more people could contribute because they didn't have to go all the way to Bushwick because we hosted it at a bar, and it was more jovial and goofy and yeah, so moving on wasn't that hard. We didn't really have a post-mortem for it or anything. We haven't really acknowledged that we failed there as a person team.
But now in this video,
now you can post it online. And actually, Stuart will see it because he totally does a lot of Mozilla stuff. But whatever, he won't mind.
So there's a couple of things from your story that I want to pull out that really resonate, and one is this idea of standards, of templates, of making things easy to replicate. I think that is super powerful and really important. And that's something in study groups we're trying to do. Like we've created some templates and we have this handbook as a guide. But I think the most important thing to make sure that our templates are working well and functional is to hear from you guys. If you use the templates, are they working? Do you like them? What are innovations that you found in it, particularly having Luke's resources available there for his council is like another version of a template. So we want to hear and want feedback on those materials. The other thing I wanted to say is I think this is similar with Luke's story and Aurelia's story. Is it sounds like you found somebody that you like doing projects with, and you did a project with that person, and when you guys failed. You had a motivation to keep working together, even if you shifted focus. And so I think that's another really powerful story. It's like, if you're doing this, don't try to do it alone. Find somebody that you like being around, because so much of this work, any kind of work, organizing, learning, activism, open source, anything, is about the relationships you have with people and how to maintain them. And I think Danielle's point is like, who do you scope out? It's like the people that look like they have it together and are going to follow up, but also people that you enjoy being around. So that was another something that really I think resonated from both of your stories. And there was something else I wanted to say, and now I have forgotten what it is. But I did want to, and we're going to run out of time in a little bit. Wow, there's like a crazy bird on my porch. We're going to run out of time in a moment, but I did also want to talk a little bit in the materials for this week in the study group handbook. If you have a chance to look at them, there's an exercise about personas and pathways, and the persona exercise is something that, and the pathway exercise is something that can potentially help you if your study group is hitting a rough patch. So if you're having trouble recruiting people, the problem may be that you're not quite understanding where people are getting stuck, or having problems getting to the group, or finding the group at the right time. And so if you create a persona, which is basically like an imaginary fictional person, but with characteristics of real users. So if you know that there's some people in your lab who definitely don't know how to code quite, and they keep asking you for help, like right when you're trying to leave the lab, and you want them to come to the study group, but for some reason they just don't ever come, but they always ask you for help and asking other people for help or whatever. Like if you can imagine that person and or set of people like that, and you kind of give them a fake name and a series of real characteristics, and try to understand, empathize with them. Like, what is going on with that person? Why don't they make it to the lesson? And you might need to do some user research and talk to those people, or just think more carefully and observe them and try to figure out what's going on. And it could be that the lessons are at a terrible time, or that you didn't put the room number on the flyer and that they can't make it, or that they are shy for some particular reason about joining the group, or you know that they are maybe more of an introvert and so need several kinds of encouragement, or they are somebody who's kind of super disorganized, so you have to send them maybe 3 or 4 emails. So the persona exercise is a way of kind of getting a fictional user in your head and using that person as a test case to test your process, your sort of your experience, the experience of the study group, and the sort of mechanisms by which you're reaching people. So I want to recommend that people look at those materials in the handbook and maybe work through them a bit. And then also, just to Aurelia's point about Science Hack Sundays, this idea of location, like, okay, people came once or twice, but then it turned out it was really too far away for them to get. And if you had done a little bit of persona thinking or brainstorming, that might have been something that, oh, well, maybe we can poll our users and find out, oh, everyone needs to meet a little closer to downtown, or this certain time on a Sunday. Maybe some of those people are early morning churchgoers, so if you have it at 9, nobody's going to make it. But if you have it at 3 in the afternoon, maybe people are going to come. So thinking about the real people that are engaging with your group, how you can find out more about them and bring them in. So I think that's most of what I wanted to say about personas and pathways. And I just want to, I would love to hear, and I'm going to put people on the spot a bit, that everybody on the call, if there's anything you've been thinking about in terms of growing your group, either a solution that you have or a problem that you've run into, if you just want to verbalize that in the last couple minutes, and or write it in the pad. And maybe, I know, Vicky, you have some audio problems, so just under, let's see what's going on in the pad right now. Maybe under line 61, problems and solutions. I just want to invite people to just maybe do a minute of silent ether padding about problems and solutions, and we'll just do a quick share out in the last couple minutes. So everyone take 1 minute. Problem or a solution. Okay, so we are getting lots of problems in the pad, which is great to see. Like, I want to know what those are. And I'm just going to verbalize a few of them quickly. Uh, and this is one that I think I've struggled with too. Chintia is saying we have a Gitarum linked to our GitHub repo, but no one seems to respond to messages even when they see them. I guess there's a lack of interest and nothing one can do about it. I think we at Mozilla Science Lab and the study group repo in study groups are also having this problem. U of T Coders says that we abandon this in favor of email or GitHub issues. I mean, I do think you have to use the communication channels that work for your group, and it's difficult to get messages to build community in a new communication tool if people don't have a reason to be there. One thing I think I'm going to start trying in the study group repo, and I've been suggesting, is for the study group repo Gitter chat, trying to encourage people to post regularly when there's an event. And then I think one of the things that I've learned from using communication tools, and Aurelia is also a pro at this, is, well, this is my insight, I'm not sure if it's shared, but it's just you kind of need to seed the chat with stuff. And a lot of the stuff that you pop in there, people may not respond to, but if nobody is posting, nobody else will post. So to just post consistently, engage people, ask questions, it's sort of like if you're at a party and everyone's sort of standing around quietly, there has to be one person who goes around and breaks the ice and like starts conversations and kind of calls people out. And so I think, it may be that those channels just will never work for your group, but I think some persistence there is something that can eventually pay off. But I agree that it's difficult. Does anyone else have any comments about that one? Chinti, I think that was your question.
I guess I have a comment on that. We wound up using a Slack channel to organize Science Hack Day, and it took a little while to get going, but in the end, I think it was successful, and that Slack channel is like still going. People are still talking on it because there were so many like urgent things that needed to be decided, and that can be that kind of like urgency. Like we had a big urgent time, and then the chatting just continued after we got through that. So like everyone got used to looking at it a lot during that time because that's how all the communications were happening. Yeah. So I don't know if that's useful. It's like harnessing that to like and keep the momentum going.
I think that's true too of our Working Open workshop in Berlin. I know, Achinta, you're on that channel, the WOW channel or the community channel, that we had a lot of activity after that group, and so maybe you need like kind of like a birthing event for your for your communication channel where it's like really intense there, and then people begin to use it more regularly. So figuring out how to do that, it sort of needs a big kickoff party. So just quickly to go over some of the other problems that we're having. Difficulty to convince scientists that they have time for this. I thought last time we met in the Open Science 101's session, we had some good strategies for encouraging people to know that learning to code will actually save them time. And I like, Luke, I see that you are just kind of keep pushing the message out there persistently. And I think so much of this work is about persistence and just repeating the message over and over and not being discouraged. I mean, if it was easy to organize communities would be magically organized everywhere and the world would look really different, but it is hard. And I think persistence is a big like that's one of the biggest assets you can have as a study group coordinator. I don't know, there's a couple other problems here, and I think we're running out of time, so I don't want to keep people over, but I encourage you to comment on each other's work and keep having this discussion. This is basically the end of our study group orientation series for those of you who are new. But I wanted you guys to know that we're all still here, and that you can see many of your study group comrades on the study group calls. Aurelia, when's the next study group call?
It's January 6th, I want to say. Yeah, January 6th.
So we'll be here again after the winter holidays, and always in the study group Gitter chat, and you can reach us by email at any time. And these Etherpads are here, and just wanted to encourage you guys to keep staying in conversation and staying in touch with each other. And then I'll also be sending around a follow-up form about the orientations, so we can figure out what's been useful and not useful. And we'll be running another orientation session in January, a sort of new and improved version. This was our 1.0 prototype orientation series. So glad you could join us. Does anyone else want to say anything before we leave? Not so much. So thanks for joining us, and keep using the pad, and we'll see you in January on the study group call. Keep in touch. Thanks, everybody.